Hey everybody, welcome to Hope for Our Times, and let me tell you, you're about ready to have your mind blown with some of the things that we're going to be discussing today. I have an outstanding program for you. My guest today, haven't had him on in quite some time. His name is Tim Thompson. He's the founding pastor of 412 Church in Temecula Valley. He's also the president and founder of Our Watch. And Pastor Tim is known for his expertise in eschatology and his leadership in bridging the gap between the church and the political sphere. People say you shouldn't be involved in politics. The problem is, it's not about politics, it's about the Bible versus, it's good versus evil. Although many people have turned it into politics, they've made it a political issue, it is not. So pastors won't even get in the fight. It's just insane. But along with his outstanding teachings on why men need to be men, yeah, that's right, men need to be men because we live in a sissified world. Tim is also a member of AIPAC, and which to me is just such a great encouragement as we are marched together supporting the nation of Israel and the Jewish people recognizing God's covenant with Abram. We're going to cover a lot of areas today. Pastor Tim was also arrested by Governor Newsom in the early stages of COVID because, well, quite frankly, we'll find out why, but also he refused to shut down his church at all when the governor was saying everybody's got to shut down their church in California. We have so much more to talk about. He also had on his program several times on his own podcast on Our Watch, Pastor Arthur Pawlowski out of Canada, who, if you're from Canada, you know how the story goes there. So Tim, so much to talk about. I'm looking at things. This is what people are going to get to know a lot. You broke when the illegal immigration stuff started happening, and the Biden administration was flying illegals into parts of the country. You broke that. It was like 3 years ago, I think it was.
Right.
You had video footage. You had video footage where people with you on your team went into school board meetings and actually recorded what was being said, like Project Veritas. There's so many things that you have done going after pedophiles, which has got people really upset. Amazing that would bother people if you go after pedophiles and expose the truth about what's going on. Tim, I have so many places to start. I'm just gonna throw this one out there. Let's just start here, right? Because this is big. It's in the news. Biden administration is saying we want to bring 800,000 Palestinian refugees into America. Americans are saying we don't want anything. We don't want any part of this. Don't bring them here. But we look at the whole immigration madness about what's going on. So let me ask you this. Let's just start here. Why do we have blown out borders in the South, and why do you think Biden administration wants to bring in 800,000 Palestinians into America who he promises to vet, which we know that is never going to happen? Why do you think that's happening?
Well, there's obviously some sort of formulated attack being implemented right now on our country. And all you have to do is open your eyes to see it. You know, it's very obvious. You know, if you do any traveling, you go to any airport, you can see these lines of illegal immigrants. They don't need a passport. They can get on a plane without any identification. I mean, you and me, we travel quite a bit for what we do. And I know you have to show your ID. You have to prove that you are who you say you are in order to get on a plane and go anywhere. But they don't have to. And that's become the status quo. We're seeing an invasion. You know, it'd be one thing if you saw, you know, legitimate refugees, legitimate, you know, husband, wife, children. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing military-age men, and we're not seeing them come over by the hundreds. We're seeing them come over by the hundreds of thousands. You know, we're now, you know, almost 4 years in Biden administration, and we're 30 million illegals. This is a big problem when the vast majority of those are military-age men. I've got so much to say about that too. If we can, we talk about what the director of the FBI has said and the warnings that we've been given.
Yeah, I do want to go there. Let me see. I got to ask my guys. Hey, do you have either of those videos with the illegals in the bus and the illegals get dropped off on the boat in Newport Beach, California? Okay, let's roll the one with, let's start with the first one, Newport Beach, Tim. Watch this. You probably have already seen it, but check this out. This is Newport Beach, California, which is a very, very affluent area, at a boat dock, not just a beach pulling up and dropping them off, at a boat dock in Newport Beach, California. Let's roll this one. All right, so that's one. Tim, did you notice how many women and children were getting off that boat?
I saw one woman. That was it.
You ready for the next one? We're going to show another video. I'm pretty sure you aren't going to see any women on this next one. Right. So this next one is a bus. And wait till you see this one, folks.
Yes.
Oh. All right. So, hey, they were wearing masks. So,
well, at least they're being good people, good humans.
They're being good people. This is what they're told. Yeah. You wear this mask and you vote Democrat. And by the way, go to a college campus and we'll buy you a $500 tent. We'll pay for all of your bills. Military-aged men. This is the reality of it. And you look, you go, this is totally evil. All right. You see, you have a lot of info on this. You've actually been following the immigration truth for several years. So work through this. Director of FBI and the different individuals, what's going on?
Yeah, well, the director of the FBI gave a warning. There's some 3,300 sheriffs in our nation, and they got together for a conference in D.C. And I've confirmed all of this with several sheriffs that I have personal relationships with, that they've heard all the same information. Director of FBI said, if you look at what happened on October 7th in Israel, the people who trained, the people who did that attack there in Israel, in Gaza, those same people that trained them have trained these military-age men that are coming into our nation. They haven't trained 100 of them. They haven't trained 1,000 of them. What the director of the FBI says is they have trained hundreds of thousands of them, and they are now in our nation. And this, I'm not trying to instill fear in people, but an awareness of what the reality is. The sheriff's departments across our nation are very concerned about this, because it is the sheriff's departments that are going to have to be that first line of defense for us. Well, I should back up. The first line of defense is the fathers, husbands in their homes being prepared to protect their wives and children. That's the first line. But, you know, the sheriffs know that they got a big job on their hands because of the hundreds of thousands of military-age men that are now trained to instill fear, terror. And they're here on our soil.
Yeah. I got to ask you a quick question. Behind you, there's something on the shelf. Is that a gun? You are such a bad person, Tim. You are so bad. Hey, so I look at the county we're in, right? We have what I would consider one of the best sheriffs in the entire country. The things he has put up with, you know him personally. I've had a chance to meet him a few times also. And I look at from what I understand, we have the Soros Foundation working with Newsom in an attempt to get rid of the sheriff. He's a good sheriff. And you look at what's going on in other parts of California, the big cities, they're a mess. Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Francisco, absolutely a mess. But you move inland, it is totally conservative, and they are doing everything they can to get rid of someone like Chad Bianco, the sheriff of Riverside County. And because I believe, Tim, as long as you have a good sheriff like that and you've got great deputies for him, they're going to withhold the law. And they will,
Right.
these guys, the Soros and the Newsoms, the leftists that are in the government, they don't want that law held up. They want to cause as much lawlessness and damage as they can, because out of that they will get power. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we see, definitely in Riverside County, we've got not only do we have a great sheriff in Chad Bianco, but we have a great district attorney in Mike Hestron. Both very godly men. Both love not only do they love the word of God, but they love the Constitution, and they've sworn an oath to uphold it. And they've been doing that. And, God bless them for what they're doing, but definitely Soros, it's been proven. Mike Hestron has proven that George Soros has funded the opposition to both he and Chad Bianco, and they've targeted, especially areas like Riverside County, where, as you said, it's very, very conservative. They're targeting those areas because they want to get rid of the conservative strongholds that are there. Riverside County, Temecula Valley, where I'm at, Temecula has become a target of the left. You even see on Saturday Night Live, they've got a little skit now, Tina from Temecula, and they make fun of Temecula. Gavin Newsom has gone after the school board members in Temecula personally, So there's a very direct effort to destroy what was once known, when I was a kid, the Bible Belt of Southern California. Last week, it was incredible to see the state of California just voted 7-1. The Supreme Court of California 7-0 to make it illegal for the police department to go and detain a suspect because they're evading the police. I mean, wow. Step after step, we are making it more difficult for law enforcement to do their job and making it easier and easier for criminals to commit acts of crime. It's very difficult to watch, Tom.
Yeah. It's awful. I think one of the reasons why they're going after Temecula has something to do with you and Dr. Joseph Komorski, who I had on my program last week. And but look at that in your area. And I think this speaks volumes to people throughout the entire country that are seeing the same thing. They're living in an area that's conservative, but they're watching what's going on. And in your area, Temecula, they're building massive apartment complexes. And we think, okay, if people are leaving California, why are they building these massive apartment complexes? Why are they building them in the middle of Montana, in the middle of Idaho, in the middle of the Dakotas? All of a sudden, they just pop up. Huge. Well, wait a minute. The only population growth seems to be from illegals. So what is really going on here? And you target these areas. In my mind, they target these particular areas because it's an attempt to flip the state, to bring in their policies, whatever it is, and create lawlessness, because these are not being built for people who are upstanding citizens. The Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 12, he was talking to the religious leaders who were accusing him of casting out demons by Beelzebub. He basically says, look, that's stupid. Why would I do that? And then he said two things. And I think this is what is happening in America. He said, house divided against itself cannot stand. Satan knows that. And so how do you bring down America? Divided against itself. That is happening, and we're living through it. And then a few verses later, he says this: the thief knows that he cannot take the house unless he first binds the strong man. And I think these two things are happening in America. The house is being divided, it is divided, and the strong man, America, is being bound, because America really is the strong man of this world, to keep some things good, to be able to keep wars from escalating. However, now what do we have? Coming out of the current Biden administration, we have exactly the opposite. Propagating war, opening up the borders, destroying America from the inside, dividing it, and everything is flipping from what it used to be to what it is now. America is being divided and conquered, and the strong man is being bound in order for these deep state people, the globalists, to be able to accomplish their plan. And I believe the blown out borders have a lot to do with bringing about a global government. And we're going to get into this in the second half, because we can't quite yet. But some of the things that you got arrested for with Newsom, and some of the other events over the last 4 years that we can't quite talk about yet that have taken place. Listen, these were all implemented to destroy this country, to divide it more, and to also affect the mindset of people. You look at gender stuff, which you deal with a lot, and all these things. So many things are so evil. Tim, you talk a lot about men needing to be men. Where's the men? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of thoughts for the second half of our time together.
Well, okay. Okay, well, we can hold off for the second half on that because I have a lot of other questions to ask you. Is a real man a misogynist?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, Jesus was the truest real man of all real men, and look at how he treated women with love and respect, and that is exactly what a real man does. You know, there is something extremely beautiful and extremely valuable about women, and it's something that real men cherish. They cherish it in their wives, they cherish it in their daughters and their granddaughters and their sisters. So, no, I mean, there's no such thing as a real man that is a misogynist.
Yeah, but obviously when it comes to the mainstream media, they say just the opposite because they want men to dress like girls, and they say that's, I mean, it's just total insanity. All right. You're also a member of AIPAC. Will you just tell everybody? Some people are familiar with AIPAC, some people aren't. Can you explain what AIPAC is, and then we're going to get into a conversation about Israel for a few minutes.
Yeah, and so AIPAC stands for American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. They're a lobbying organization. What they do is they work with Congress to try to promote pro-Israel policy. And obviously, you've been very busy for a long time, but extremely busy since October 7th of last year, because this has just been a nightmare for the people that are in Israel. But yeah, they're trying to push forward pro-Israel policy. And what I do as a member of AIPAC is I'm the Southern California outreach pastor. So I reach out to the evangelical pastors and try to get them more connected. Sadly, as you know, with wicked theology out there, like, you know, replacement theology, you get a lot of people who don't understand their need to support Israel. And so with that type of false teaching within churches across across Southern California, it's so important to reach out to these pastors and really instruct them in what the scriptures say. And I think one of the best ways, and you do this all the time, Tom, one of the best ways is to encourage them about how God is not done with Israel, is just to take them to Israel, show them what God has done, show them how prophecy is being fulfilled. The idea that God has, used the church to replace the Jews, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense when you go to Israel. So I think that's one of my biggest goals, is getting pastors there.
Yeah. How much resistance do you get from pastors? I mean, obviously, you and I, Greg Denham, I mean, we can list some, Jack Hibbs, there's some that are very favorable, but overall, it seems to me like for every one or two, there's 50 that are not pro-Israel, or just don't even want to talk about it. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Tom. They don't want to talk about it. And I think what it is they don't understand it. They don't want to touch prophecy. They've been, and I don't want to rip on too many people, but they've been given Bible light messages for a long time. 10 steps to conflict resolution, 5 steps being the best you can be. So they haven't gotten into the deep theological issues that are so relevant to what's going on around the world. And because they're ill-informed, prophecy tends to scare them. And so they just shy away from even touching it altogether. And so they really need to, like I said, they need to get over to Israel and get educated on these things.
Yeah. I would love to have as many people go over to Israel as possible. We'll have more trips that are coming up. As you know, we just got back. But and we will go again shortly, everybody. But I look at it, and it's so cool. Every time I go there, there's more things that have been uncovered by the archaeologists. It's like everywhere you go. It is amazing to see, and hardly anybody's going there right now. People are afraid. They're anxious. But man, it's safer than it's way safer than Los Angeles or Chicago or New York, it's way safer.
Right.
It's safer for me to go to Israel than it is for me to go to the grocery store in my own community.
Right.
But people don't realize that. But I find this so cool. In Psalm 102, the psalmist is writing, and he says, he's talking about the nation of Israel and the Lord being exalted in Zion. And then he says that they will, talking about the people of Israel, they will delight, they take joy in her stones and delight in her dirt, the soil. And I look at that's archaeology, and that is what it's happening right now. The more and more that's uncovered, man, it is so exciting, and ultimately that prophecy will get fulfilled in the millennial kingdom. But you look at that and you go, it is amazing, folks, and we see the hand of God, the miraculous intervention of God when Iran just attacked Israel last month, a month or so ago, and we see what God has done. In fact, I did a whole video on that for the Tom Hughes report, if any of you want to check it out. But I look at these things with Israel and the resistance of people that's out there towards Israel, especially coming from the church, and it does bother me. By the way, everybody, if you're looking for a great church and you're in San Diego or Riverside County, especially South Riverside County, Temecula, Murrieta, maybe even Corona area, looking for a great church, 412 Temecula. If you're looking for a pastor who's going to be bold and talk to men the way that men need to be talked to, and to be able to talk about the hard things that other pastors just don't want to do, they're because they're too soft. You're looking for a real church. I would encourage you. 412 Temecula it's my home church. That's where I go whenever I'm in town, not out speaking somewhere. And it's just great being able to be there with Pastor Tim whenever I can. And I encourage you, if you're looking for a good church and you're in that area, it's a great church. All right, Tim. Now, as we look at other things that are taking place as we press forward, you've been involved also in school board meetings. You've encouraged me to, and I'm glad that I have. But we need to be involved at the local level as I look at things. And people are saying, we've lost this battle, but no, you are living proof of what can happen when a pastor gets involved and people in the church get involved, people who follow you get involved. Temecula School Board was completely flipped. It was woke. Right. It did all the gender nonsense, and it has completely flipped. And the battle is really at the local level, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Yeah, it really is. We live in, for those of your audience, I know you have audience around the world, but for those that live in America, we still live in what's known as a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And with the constitutional republic, you have a thing called local control. And it's something we still do have, and it's something we should be exercising. Sadly, not many people understand that, and they don't exercise it. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I was going to the school board meetings over the last several years, and one thing that I heard consistently from school board members was, well, the state said this, or the state said that. And it was this constant, the school board members representing the state to us, as though their job is to somehow tell us what the state is mandating. And what I had to remind the school board was, your job is not to represent the state to us. Your job is to represent us to the state. We have local control. We get to say what happens on a local level. And that is how a constitutional republic works. So we had to get people on the school board who understood that. And that's exactly what we did. And the moment we did that, because as you know, Temecula Valley is very conservative, the moment we put a conservative majority on that school board and we said no to critical race theory, we said no to pornography, we said no to erotica, no to pervasive materials, no to LGBT trans flags all over the campus. As soon as we said no to lying to parents about whether their kids are getting abortions and trans therapies, when we said no to all of that, all of a sudden we had the attention of the governor. And the governor started calling out our school board president, Dr. Joseph Komrosky, started calling him out by name, calling him an ignorant man, threatening him with lawsuits, just going after us like crazy. Why? Because all of a sudden we started exercising the local control, and they didn't like it.
By the way, I interviewed Dr. Joseph Komrosky, who Tim just mentioned. You can check that out. That's from last week. Tim, they were taking down his signs. You know, he puts them out. Those things get thrown away. Listen, we're in a battle, and it's a spiritual battle. And again, it just really grinds me, Tim, with pastors that have said, well, you know, you have the Johnson Amendment. You can't be talking about these things. What a bunch of nonsense. I mean, I look at this and go, you got to be kidding me. Well, pastors, so you have school board members that say, well, the state says this, therefore. Or with pastors, well, the Johnson Amendment, therefore we can't even talk. You can't talk about abortion and pro-life. You can't talk about gender things. You can't talk about marriage between a man and a woman because the governor says, or whoever it is says, that's political. That is just total nonsense. They eliminate, so what do pastors teach? But it's very soft when it comes to the area of spiritual world that we live in right now here in the United States of America. We're like 3,000 miles wide from coast to coast and about a quarter inch deep with depth of biblical understanding and courage. Lack of courage seems to be a huge thing that I see.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard to watch. And we know from reading the book of Revelation that lack of courage is going to be one of the things that God judges pretty harshly. He judges the coward, and we as men of God have to know that. We need to be courageous. And I really want to encourage your audience to know this, that the spirit of the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God, the one who breathes out stars, has placed his spirit in you. And if he be for you, who can be against you? You have to have that attitude as you approach a culture that we live in. As you approach a culture that wants, and I hate to say it in these terms, but they want to have sex with your children. This is the reality of it. They're going after your children. They don't even hide it. You have to have the spirit, know the spirit that is in you, and move forward in the power of that spirit. Because if you will do that, God can do some incredible things.
Amen. Tim, you've had on your program Chloe Cole, and you also interviewed on your program Dr. Bridget Melson about mental health problems in teens. Can you help us to understand a couple of these things? First of all, Chloe Cole and the mental health issue that is very real, and why you think it is what it is.
Yeah, Chloe Cole. I just love that young lady, and I don't know if you knew this, but she gave her life to the Lord, and so I'm so excited about that. I'm getting the opportunity to baptize her later this summer. And for your audience that might not know her, she's a young girl who at the age of 13 was tricked by Kaiser Permanente into believing that she needed to go on cross-sex hormones. And by the age of 15, they convinced her to have a double mastectomy. And it breaks my heart, because when you meet this young lady, Chloe, you see such a beautiful young woman. I tell her when I hear her story, I want to jump for joy, and I want to hurt somebody, and I want to cry. I'm all at the same time, because you see what this wicked system has done to her into believing that she could become something other than God created her. My heart breaks for her, and I'm angry at the doctors that would do such a thing to her. And yet I'm joyful that the Lord has a hold of her life, and that she is now a voice into a dark and dying world, a voice of truth, that you cannot become something other than what God created you when it comes to gender. There is XX and XY chromosomes. That is it. You're either one or the other. And she knows that. This poor young girl, as after she had her double mastectomy, never having contemplated suicide before, then began to contemplate suicide. She was in a psychology class, and in the class they were talking about the psychological ramifications of a woman not breastfeeding her child, how that connection between a mother and her newborn baby, as she's breastfeeding that baby, the important connection that takes place. And she came to the realization that she would never, ever experience that. So that was really the moment that she woke up, and God got a hold of her life. And now she's this voice, this incredible voice. But what I see when I see the transgender movement in America, and not just in America, because it's all over the place at this point, but when I see this movement, is I see a spirit of delusion upon people, because there are people that are otherwise educated, very, very educated people, are buying into this nonsense. And the only thing that can explain this to me is spirit of delusion. This idea of mental illness. I think there's a couple different things at play here, because truly there is a mental illness. There are some people who have gender dysphoria for one reason or another, and that's a mental illness. But then I think there's also a rebellious spirit, where kids that want to rebel against their parents, they don't necessarily have a mental illness. They're just angry with their parents. I mean, I don't know about you, Tom, but I went through times where I was, unjustifiably angry at my parents. I was just this rebellious teenager, wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so I found ways to rebel. I think kids are rebelling against their parents.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal for kids to rebel against their parents. At least I certainly did. And I remember my brothers and sisters did too. And I may have been the worst out of the whole family. It's interesting. I mean, there's so many things that are interesting here. But with Chloe Cole, I was on a panel with her a couple of months back, and she had said this, which was really hard to hear. But and she's still young and just absolutely brilliant. But she said, when her parents were told about her, I guess by the doctors or whoever it was, because everybody was encouraging them to go through, they told her parents, this is what's going to happen. You can either lose your daughter or gain a son. In other words, your daughter's going to kill herself if she doesn't do the transition, or you'll gain a son. Would you rather have her kill herself or gain a son? That is awful. And yet here it is. As you just said, she never contemplated suicide until after this. And this is all adults, which really ticks me off. By the way, everybody, we're going to get into a lot more discussion of things that we want to get into that we are unable to yet in 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes. So we're going to be on the app and website exclusive. And I'm going to turn Pastor Tim loose to talk about some of the things with Governor Newsom here in California that everybody needs to be on the alert of. We're watching what's going on in Canada with crazy Justin Trudeau. We got Ice Cream Joe in the White House here in America. But what happened 4 years ago and what's going on right now, we're going to get into a lot. Also, what happened in January a few years ago, what's still going on, we're going to get into that. A lot more to discuss. So you got a minute and 25 seconds, everybody. Get ready to switch over to the app. It's Hope for Our Times, or the website, hopeforourtimes.com. Everything will be over there. So I'll be signing off here in about a minute and 10 seconds. Now, okay, Tim, you also interviewed a Satanist. Her name was Tepe. And I mean, you have several other things you've done. So what's up?
So, former Satanist.
Okay, former Satanist.
Yes.
We got about 50 seconds left on this, John. Help us through that. We'll pick up the rest with the other things as soon as we sign off here.
Yeah, somebody had sent me a video of hers, and I really honestly didn't know what to think about her when I first saw the video, because she still dresses, in black, and that's just her style, and so I started watching it, and what I realized is this is a woman who legitimately has been touched by the Spirit of God and just chooses to still have a style that looks kind of dark, but she is somebody who's been experienced in the Church of Satan. She knows what they do. She knows why they do it. And now she's a voice to kind of educate people to what to look for and what's going on.
Okay, we're switching over, everybody, in 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to pick up right now.